Kia ora, everybody, and I'd love to introduce you to a friend of mine, Morag Payton. She is a person that I have met through the online space of evangelism, and I'm really excited to speak to her today. I'm going to interview her and talk to her about what she has been doing for the last 5.5 years through her mission at Christian Vision in the online space. She's incredibly passionate about people being equipped and encouraged and inspired to share their faith online. She works tirelessly talking to people who are exploring faith. And you even did this amazing thing, which I love. You created something called a Jesus bot. Is that actually a thing?
It is actually a thing. I recognised that there was an ability to be able to use a bot to lead people to Jesus. And so I created what I call the Jesus bot. And that's exactly what it does. It leads people to Jesus. Super cool.
In your experience, are people being impacted by evangelistic content online?
Absolutely. Without a doubt, they're getting impacted by content online.
Have you got a story that you could maybe share with us that highlights that?
I sure have. It happened to me a number of years ago, just where I was actually teaching some people how to share their faith. And one of the girls in the class came to me and she showed me this video. And it was a gospel message video. And honestly, what happened with me is I looked at that as picking it apart to make sure, did it have all the aspects of the gospel in it? When I got home, that's when I felt like God tapped me on the shoulder and say, darling, I want you to have a look into this a little bit more. And what I did was I started to research and see what kind of search words and what kind of search things people would be looking for in the online space. And honestly, I was shocked with the content. And I ended up talking to God about that and saying, this is terrible. We need to do something about it. And little did I know I was going to be the answer to that question. And as Leah's already said, for 5.5 years, I've been in this organization. And I have literally led hundreds of people to Christ in the online space because of that one person that showed me that one video that impacted me.
So I've shared something online, or maybe I've seen something that's been shared online, and I've noticed that some of my friends have made some comments that are either searching for faith or in a negative or a positive context. What's my next step?
Well, that's a brilliant question to ask because a lot of people don't even think about a next step. Some people would look at that kind of comment and either shy away from it, thinking, oh, I don't want to get into an argument. Or they do the other thing, which is like a keyboard warrior, and they'll start putting comments underneath that post. And next thing you'll know, it's like doo, 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 with all these terrible posts, and it can get like really out of control. And maybe there's been situations where you could think of that you could either see have happened or that have happened to you. And I know some of those comments I cringe at as well. But the key is to take the conversation private. So maybe there's some kind of view that someone has put up where you go, I don't agree with that. Instead of saying that in that public space, what I would do is then send a private message. Say, for example, I was doing it with you, Leah, and I saw something that I was thinking, she's just way off track. And rather than me going and giving all my opinion about what I think is right or wrong, or some kind of opinion that I want to give related to your comment, what I'd like to do in a private message is actually draw you into a conversation. So it's very much about saying, hey, I recognize that there's a comment that you've put up, and then asking, can I engage or can I talk with you about this so that I can understand where you're coming from? So it's finishing that private message with a question, and then you then wait for Leah to respond before you then continue to engage. So it's very much this pace, lead, pace, lead. It's like what you would do if you were sitting in a living room with someone. I wouldn't just sit there and talk at you for half an hour and give you a screed of what I wanted to say. But I would have a conversation. I'd ask you questions. You would give me another answer back. I'd ask you another question. So it's very much about taking those conversations private, and it is amazing what can unravel. if you're interested enough in that person to take time with them, it will be amazing to see how they will actually open up to you and what kind of incredible conversations you can have about Jesus.
It's really encouraging. And what I think I'm hearing you say is to inspire us to actually look for those God spaces in our social media feeds and in our friends' posts, and look for occasions where we can begin a conversation with somebody around faith topics. I always say the question is never the question. And I hear you talking about asking people questions. What are the best kind of questions to ask?
It's an interesting one as well, because again, you've got to look at what someone is asking you. But many times people might give opinions on things and they might make some statements. Some of those statements don't even make sense. So rather than trying to actually answer the statements or the questions that they're asking, it's to come back with them with another question. So, for example, if someone is saying to you something along the lines of, I don't believe in your God, you could ask something like, have you ever experienced God? Or what has been your experience of God? Or have you ever tried talking to God before? So it becomes these questions that instead of giving a response back, it would be asking another question to draw that person out. Something else that many people start talking about is, why does your God create evil? And why does your God allow evil? And there can be all sorts of questions around God. Now, sometimes when you actually break that question down, it doesn't even make sense, because they'll say on one hand that they don't believe in God, and in another hand, they're actually blaming God for something. So rather than pointing that out to them, what you can do is you can ask some questions that will help to draw them out in such a way that it sort of traps them, but without you telling them, I'm trapping you. So you're asking a question, well, do you have a way around evil yourself? Do you have a solution for the evil that's in this world? And it's amazing how when you ask a question back, very quickly their question will get unraveled and you'll get down to the heart of where that person is at. It's about getting to their heart. Remember, it's in the online space. So you've got to go step by step, step by step. So it's a slow burn, what I call a slow burn. Don't be in a hurry to be able to get answers.
What kind of content have you found to be the most impactful?
That is a very interesting question, because I think there's a lot of content that can be impactful, but I think I would ask the question in a slightly different way. It's more, what helps people to engage? And I think often we actually miss that kind of step and we think, oh, this is amazing. And we go and send something to our friend, but it doesn't actually relate to where our friend is at. So what I would say is anything can work, but who are you actually trying to reach? And who does the content actually relate to? And so, you know, I look at things like broadcast, what I would say broadcasting. So maybe you think, oh man, I'd love to invite someone along to my online church service. And maybe I've got this amazing video and I'd like to broadcast that. What I mean by broadcasting is putting that up on your social media platform and thinking this is going to be amazing for the people that get to happen along it. Now, sometimes people will happen along that piece of content, but many times people will actually skip through it. And so what I often like to do with any piece of content is just be aware of what that content and how that content would actually relate to one of my friends, and then connect it personally with one of my friends, or personally to the person that I think that piece of content would speak to.
Can I just ask a follow-up question from that? Is negative content better than positive content, as in, maybe not negative is a good word, but content that is to provoke people to think, or is more positive content more beneficial?
That's a very interesting question again, because you look at how different people are. You've got to really think about the personality of the person that you're trying to reach. Sometimes negative content can be just the spark that they need to be able to ask another question. Sometimes that negative content can end up just going like way off track.
Yeah.
and ending up taking people down a place where you just don't want to go. Again, with positive content, you can get people responding to you saying, oh, what a load of, I'll use the word crap, because they do say things like that. You can get some really, really harsh comments. But then it's about what you do with those comments and how you turn those round. So I think both with negative and with positive content, you can get the right kind of result, provided that you have the right kind of response. So really, it's not about the content, it's about what's going on in my heart and how can I respond in such a way that it's going to draw people into a conversation rather than to build a bridge with that person.
What do you do when people stop responding to your messages? They just ghost you.
So in terms of if I'm in a private conversation and then they ghost me?
Yeah.
It's an interesting, I don't know that I've been asked that question before.
You don't have to answer it.
No, it's okay. If it was happening to me personally, you know, you've got to actually ask that question, why would someone be ghosting me in the first place? It's a good idea to actually have a look back at the conversation. You know, sometimes what we do is we're writing our conversation and we don't realise that some of the words that we're using are actually quite negative. It's an interesting one because I help to teach and train people in the online space and how to respond. And there are some words that people use that make you sound quite argumentative, even if you're not being argumentative. So words like "oh" or "well" or "so" and "okay." And if you use all of those kind of words before you start your sentence, if you think about it, like read that back to yourself, if the person is thinking that you're being negative, which most people think you are, because they're on the defensive from the start, just think through, especially if your friend is defensive, they're on the defensive. If you're then using words that help to cement that defensiveness in, you've got to have a look back on the conversation and see, have I been using those kind of words? Or the other question I would ask is, have I been talking at my friend? For example, if my friend says they're struggling and then I've gone and given an answer, well, you just need to read such and such out of the Bible, and you give them a verse, that's not actually connecting with your friend. It's basically just going back and giving them a solution for a problem that they had, instead of asking them a question to enable them to come to their own solution instead of being told. So I think I'd look at it that way. I have very few people that ghost me. Maybe that's why. I'd love to tell you a story because you're asking a question about people posting stuff. I have had a recent post that one of my friends, I mean, I say she's a friend, but she's actually only an acquaintance. I don't really know her that well. And she put up a post, and you know how there's the feelings that you get on Facebook? She put, "I'm feeling hopeless," and then gave this little blip of why she's feeling hopeless and saying that she's just really struggling with this whole COVID thing. And, you know, how can she get herself motivated? And, you know, she's got no job at the moment and she's just really struggling.
Wow.
And I had a look at these comments on the bottom of this post. And honestly, there's a lot of Christianese and a lot of comments with just people giving all sorts of suggestions. Now, even though there was a part of me thinking, oh, I don't know if I have time to engage with her privately, I actually wondered if she was a little bit suicidal. And this is the thing, is suicidal people reach out and they need people like you to be able to engage with them so that they can get hope. And it's not something to be afraid of, but something just where you can ask a question and see how they're doing. And so that's what I did with her. And it's just been amazing to see her response. It's taken a few days, but she said, "Thank you so much for reaching out to me." And then she's come back to me to tell me that she's now just started to read the Bible again every day. And I've given her some tips on then just writing a little journal of what God's speaking to her. So it's taken her from this hopelessness to hope. And hey, that's the name of your church, right?
It is.
It's like a little plug.
I'm just wondering, is there some tools that are maybe available to us, some evangelistic tools that we can use to help equip us in the online space, or even to use to share in the online space?
Absolutely. I can give you one tool that's got everything in it. Well, I say everything. It may not be for everyone, but it's a tool that's very, very helpful to use. And it's a tool that's free, and it's called Yes, He Is. In fact, I can say that really quickly with my Kiwi accent. In Australia, they don't understand me, but yes, He Is. And you can download that for free. And you'll notice on the download, it actually gives you a few challenges of what you can do. So, for example, maybe you're a little bit afraid about sharing your faith. You can go through a prayer and commit to God, can you help me along this journey? There's also another tool where it helps you to learn how to share the gospel. There's another one on how to build your story, which is really cool. And there's another one that's coming soon. And then alongside with that tool as well, there are lots of videos that you can share. So you can look up a video that relates to your friend, and you could then share that. And you know how Leah talked before about me making a Jesus bot? Well, on those video share links, when you share the link, so this app, just so you know, this app is for Christians. So your non-Christian friends don't download the app. You send them video links, right? So those links have the video, and then if you wait for a few seconds, there's this little beep that comes up and it says, who is Jesus? And it can take people through that robot as well. So it's a great tool to be able to use to help your friends to, first of all, see a video. Maybe they might just go through that bot as well. And then you can get back to them and say, hey, what did you think? And so it's a great tool for you to use. It has lots of blogs in there as well, and a place where you can return and just share your ideas with other people that are also sharing their faith. And it's worldwide too. So it's super.
The way that we met was that some people had given their life to Christ using the Jesus bot, who were living in Christchurch, and you contacted me at Hope and asked me to mentor some of those people that came through. So obviously you're seeing people give their lives to Christ in this online space. I'm assuming that the next step for them is to connect them with a local church.
Yes, absolutely. So while we've got these different tools, as you've said, Leah, I came to see you because that's what we want to do, is connect these people to a local church. And in the context of the people that I was connecting you with, this was in another Facebook page that I also reach out to people directly on. And so we just trial and test things with people across Australia and New Zealand and have that conversation with those people that don't know Jesus. And so that's where I connected those people to you. The ideal would be, though, rather than me or the ministry as such sharing our faith in that space, the idea is not for us to be doing it, but it's about empowering every single person to share their faith. And, sometimes we use this word, we often use this word evangelism. It used to freak me out, evangelism.
Me too.
Yeah. But it's simply actually sharing your story. And you'll often hear me talking about sharing your faith. I've moved away, I guess, in terms of that word evangelism as such, because it's not for the, people who, well, I am an evangelist. That's not for just me to do that job, but it's to be able to help to empower each and every person to be able to do exactly what I'm doing and use the Holy Spirit to guide and direct you in using these tools. So we definitely want to see people connected to the church, and we know that these online tools reach out to people in such a way that connects.
One of the things that's a little bit of a barrier for people talking to their friends online about faith is having to know all the answers to all the questions. So you mentioned before that big Christian question, about suffering and God, why this world is so broken, and that's not an easy question to answer. What do you do if you don't have all the answers to your friends' questions and inquiries?
That is a great question. First of all, be honest and say, I don't know the answer. In fact, I have seen so many people, their barriers and walls have just broken down when they hear me being authentic. Your friends don't actually need you to be some, I don't know, amazing theological person. I think they probably freak out that you might be and that you know everything. But, when someone says, I don't know, could we have a look at this together? It actually brings this whole area of humility. And, there are some amazing resources that you can use. And one of them that I use constantly is Alpha, and taking my friend to Alpha. And this is the cool thing right now as well, is that Alpha is online. So you might be reaching out to someone that's not even in your neighborhood. You might have some school friends that are struggling. Maybe they're in Dunedin. There's no reason why you can't share your faith and then connect them into an online Alpha, and you could join those online Alphas as well. So Alpha is a fantastic way of doing that. So don't be limited to the fact that Alpha is no longer in a room, because Alpha is online, and I can say it works.
So that's actually one of the benefits of online evangelism, is that the barriers of location really have been taken down, and we can, like you're sitting in Australia right now and I'm in Christchurch, and yet we can still have this conversation. So that excites me. I don't know if it does for you as well, but that excites me, those opportunities and advantages of being able to talk to people from a distance. Is that the only advantage to online evangelism?
Online evangelism, it's been happening for ages. It's just we as a church haven't actually got on in a large way. And I tell you something that hugely excites me is I feel like the switch has been flicked, and suddenly the church has been forced online. This has been an area that's been open for a very long time. We're way more connected online than I think people realise.
Yeah.
And I've met with more people in more living rooms over the last 4 weeks than I would be able to in an entire year. And I think some people are really afraid with the online space, but could I encourage everybody not to be afraid? That this is a space where, used in the right way, it brings an open door to the nations. And so, we may be in this period of time where we've been forced in the online space, but I would say let's not ever stop having church in the online space. You are the church, and there's no one more church than you.
Yep.
It's something that I've heard that saying a number of times. So often what we've done is we've looked at one person or going to a building or a location, and it's really important that we meet together. There's no doubt about that. Church is it's so important that we do have that gathering of people, but you are the connection point to be able to reach the nations. And if every single one of us even just spend time to pray for one or two people and go after those one or two people, we'll see the church expanded amazingly and massively over this time. So this is a time to jump on board. Don't be afraid. Get out there, do it. You can do it. And don't be afraid of making mistakes either, because it's through the mistakes that you learn. And just laugh at yourself and have some fun.
What would your top piece of advice be for us in our online presence as to being Jesus in that space?
What we also need to do is look at what we've got already in our online space. So look at your social media accounts and have a look at what you've posted, and put yourself in the shoes of someone who maybe has had an abortion. Put yourself in the shoes of someone who has got a same-sex relationship. Put yourself in the shoes of someone that is suicidal. Put yourself in the shoes of a single mum who's struggling at this time. Try and think through all those different scenarios of all those people that you're trying to reach. Have a look at what you've posted recently. Have those posts help to bridge the gap to people that you're trying to reach? Or have they actually built a wall? And we've got to remember that everything we put out there is out there. And yes, it can go down onto your feed, and in time that post goes, and it's maybe doesn't stay around for as long as what things have stayed around for in the past. But we've just got to look at how we are reaching people and what kind of things we put up, and remembering that every single attitude and every single thought and all those things that you put out in that space are actually what people see. And so is the person that you're presenting online the same person that is at home? Is the same things that you're commenting on and the laughter that you're having and the jokes that you're making, are they actually what you would say if that particular person was in the room with you? So remember, while the online space seems to be out there, really it actually comes very personal, and you'll build bridges or you'll build walls. What is it that you're building? That's an important question to be asking yourself.
That's perfect. So obviously one of the key things in evangelism is prayer, is surrounding everything with prayer, and also being prompted by the Holy Spirit and being in tune with the Holy Spirit as far as being led and discerning where you need to go. What does that look like in the online space?
You personally keep praying just as you are. So the same way as what you'd be trusting God for with your friends, you keep praying, and it's very personal. You keep asking God anytime they come to your mind, be praying for them, asking God for a breakthrough in a way to be able to get through to your friends. You'll see different posts that your friends put up, and it might just be one of those moments that rather than saying something, you pray. It may be that you'll see a post that someone's put up and you think, oh, they're really struggling. I wonder if I could reach out to them and pray for them. So that's also an opportunity not only to be praying for them in the sense of trusting God for them, but maybe you might want to offer a prayer to them. So that would just simply mean something like, hey, I just noticed your post, and again, bring this private. I just noticed your post and I wondered, could I pray for you for that? And then you'll be surprised probably at how your friend will respond. But the other thing that is like one of the top tips that I feel like God just planted this in me one day. I had someone that was talking to me and asking me what's the point of prayer. Now I was talking to them in an online chat, so I'm talking about talking with my fingers. And I answered their question, and then they asked it again in a different way, and I answered it in a different way. And then they asked it in a different way again and said, but what's the point? And I think I answered it 3 times and then went, oh God, I don't know what to say. Like, help me. Yeah. And this thing just dropped into my spirit really, was Morag, the earth wouldn't have been created if I hadn't have spoken it into existence. And I suddenly realized that all the people I'd been praying for online, I hadn't actually spoken into existence. Now, when I say I pray for people online, I actually type out what I'm praying and I send it to them. So what I did after that is I still typed out what I was praying for them, and then I spoke it out loud, and then I pushed send. So there might be a number of tips in there for you. You may have never have prayed for someone online in the sense of typing out what you pray, but it's a really beautiful thing to do, and you'll be really surprised at the openness that people have. And even when they come to a problem, you can actually say, how about we ask God about that together? So there can be a time when you can help to lead people. A lot of people don't know how to pray. They have absolutely no idea. So help them out. There's a video on the Yes Ears app that talks about talking to God as well. So that might be something that would be helpful for them. But you help them first, and then you could give that as a follow-up.